Footballtribeug channel. Robert K. Sarkos is your usual suspect. Today we are late due to some morning engagements that didn't give me the ample time to get here on time as we usually do, because we usually do our broadcast around 10:30 a.m. But today it's almost 10 minutes to midday, and that's when we are getting here. But apologies for that lateness. We'll do better next time, or if nothing else interrupts us. But anyways, welcome back from the Thursday night football action from the UEFA Europa League quarterfinals, as well as the UEFA Conference League quarterfinals. There, of course, are plenty to talk about, although due to the interest of time and given that we are late for today's episode, I request that we do keep it brief. Basically, we'll look at just a summary of results and a few talking points, mainly in that Manchester United game, and leave the rest to you to give me what your expectations were, what you made of those performances, especially from Chelsea and that or from Manchester United. Where do we kick things off? Let's kick things off in the UEFA Europa League quarterfinals, where Lazio were beaten by Bodo Glimt by 2-0. Now, it was a bit of a surprise result for me. I did not expect Lazio to lose by the margin with which they lost. Sorry, I have an irritating eye. But, you know, football is always full of surprises, and for me personally, that was one of them, because I thought Lazio would be the better team, but it didn't turn out to be that way. Then Rangers, although they had an early red card as early as the 13th minute, they managed to draw this one out. They finished the game goalless. It was a goalless draw between Rangers and Athletic Bilbao, there, the club from Spain. Now, it goes without saying that, of course, that Atletico Bilbao had 2 goals missed. One was cancelled out by VAR. That was in the 77th minute, while the other was a penalty that was saved. So, I mean, for a team that had to play the game for over 80 minutes with a manless, I must say that was an impressive result. That was a solid defensive performance. Practically, I think for any team that goes into their return leg with the objective of defending their first leg result, if it was a win, then I'm sure they'll look to this Rangers result and perhaps learn a few lessons. For example, if you're Paris Saint-Germain and you're going to Aston Villa for the return leg with your 3-1 lead, and you get a red card in as early as the 13th minute, what do you do? How do you fare yourself? If you're Barcelona, now for Barcelona, they've done it before, because they went to Benfica, suffered the red card, and managed to win that game by 1-0. So they have a bit of experience of that. But then, if you got that red card as early as last time against Dortmund, perhaps it will be a different story. If you're Arsenal and you go to the Santiago Bernabeu with your 3-0 lead on aggregate, and you get a red card in as early as the first quarter of the game, how do you assemble yourself to make sure you stay in the game, to make sure that you get a good result that doesn't end up with you getting knocked out? If you're Inter Milan, if you go into the game against Bayern with your 2-1 lead, if you get a red card, now, of course, we all know that Inter Milan are the most defensively disciplined, club so far in Europe. I think there's no game where they've conceded more than 1 goal. I stand to be corrected on that one. But as far as I remember, they really limit their goal intake, just as much as Arsenal have not conceded more than 2 goals in a UEFA Champions League game. And the only time, in fact, they conceded 2 goals was against PSV when they drew 2-2 at the MSC. The other games, they conceded just a single goal. So clearly, Rangers did give us quite a show in terms of how they responded being down to 10 men and a bit of luck in one way or the other, but you always need that. So they'll go to Spain with a lot of faith in themselves that if they could do it with the man less, how about when they go there? Because of course what happens is that for as long as you keep yourself in the game, you have the chance. And that is what Rangers did. They kept themselves in the game in the manner of not conceding. So they had a chance to even win it, although they couldn't. So when you go for the return leg in Spain, and you can first of all limit the damage that Athletic Bilbao can cause you, then clearly you give yourself a chance. And that is what we did witness. The other game ended up in a 1-1 draw. Again, there were so many draws. In fact, there was only one team that won yesterday. That was Bodo Glimt against Lazio. All the other 3 games ended in draws. So the other game also ended in a 1-1 draw. That was between Tottenham Hotspur and Eintracht Frankfurt, with Ekitike scoring for Eintracht Frankfurt, while Pedro Porro did restore parity as the two sides shared the spoils in 1-1 draw. All those goals coming into in the first half. So Tottenham will have it all to do when they go to Germany, just as much as Frankfurt, I'm sure, will be relishing the reception of Tottenham in front of their home crowd and give them perhaps a better game than they could manage yesterday. So there was that. Like I said, the biggest talking points for me, at least, were from the Manchester United game. Now, we all know the kinds of wordery or sort of exchanges, verbal exchanges that happened prior to this game that did involve Manchester United goalkeeper in Andre Onana saying that United were the best team left in the competition and that kind of thing, or allusions to that. Then Nemanja Matic on the side of Lyon, never mind his advanced age, responding to him that he was the worst goalkeeper that Manchester United have had in history. Now, might I remind you that David De Gea, a former Manchester United goalkeeper, who was arguably their best player for as many as, I think, 5 seasons. That was, if you look back, as far as back slightly beyond 2013, when they last won the Premier League under Sir Alex Ferguson, and all the way through until after I think Erik ten Hag's first season in the Premier League. They let him go for free, because what happened is they promised him a contract. They then pulled that contract off the table. So he was replaced by the signing of Andre Onana from Inter Milan for about £43 million. Roughly, the deal was about 50 million euros, so to speak. So why am I mentioning David De Gea is because he was featuring for Fiorentina in the UEFA Conference League, and he was doing the magic, while Andre Onana was basically gifting Lyon. So, hello, Shots Uploader. Thank you for tuning to the broadcast. Much appreciated, my guy. So, like I was saying, Andre Onana had that bit of a verbal exchange between him and Nemanja Matic. It wasn't, very direct, but one spoke after the other. And so, yesterday, Andre Onana, he has that thing where what he does, that he wants to exhibit a lot of confidence. He's overconfident in his own abilities, which can be a good thing, but oftentimes it's been a bad thing for him, because in wanting to prove so much, he then does costly mistakes, because these are mistakes that are very avoidable. These are mistakes that, for a senior goalkeeper of his caliber, who was the best goalkeeper, I think, in the 2022-2023 season, as Inter Milan reached the finals of the UEFA Champions League, in which they lost by a goal to nil to Inter Milan, you would expect that would do better. We're talking about an Andre Onana that was at Ajax a couple of seasons back and was doing the magic. He is all known for his process as a ball-playing goalkeeper, and he's very good with his feet, and even with his hands as well. He can be very good. He can make for you numerous saves. But then every once in a while, he's that gift that keeps on giving. Unfortunately, he gives rotten eggs for when it comes to the giving part. So the first goal, Lyon scored. I mean, the ball, the ball is floated in, I think, from a free kick, and then it hits the floor, and somehow it flies past him. Now, we all know that bouncing balls can be very tricky, and but for a goalkeeper of his stature, given that there were little to no blinders in his line of vision, you would expect that he would have done more. I mean, we saw something similar when Declan Rice headed the ball onto the ground and he tried to bounce past Thibaut Courtois. Thibaut Courtois saved that, and then that ball is driven in the path, I think, of Gabriel Martinelli, who fires it back and he responds with another quick save, quick reflex. Andre Onana basically is blamed for that first goal. Now, so you really question his attentiveness sometimes. So it was Almanda who floated in that ball. There was speculation of whether the two players in the running for the ball had a touch of it, but for me, it didn't seem to be the case. But then they go to the other side, late on, deep into stoppage time or first half, and then Lyon scores to restore parity for Manchester United. Beautiful game. It was a fairly balanced game. They were both, going at each other and that kind of thing, at least in my opinion. Now, I must put a disclaimer that the source from which I was watching this particular game was a bit buffering, so I missed some moments there for the game itself, but at least I was able to catch the majority of it. Then come back into the second half, again, very late on in the game, 88th minute, Joshua Zirkzee scores with a Bruno Fernandes assist, and we think United have won it. And we think United have gone to France, unbeaten up against Lyon by 2-1, and they will carry that advantage back to Old Trafford. Well, Andre Onana had other ideas, because deep into stoppage time, 95th minute, somehow, Cheki, I hope I pronounce it well, scores. But how does he score? A shot is fired at Andre Onana, who parries the ball in the direction of the player, of the opponent's player, of Cheki. And what does he do? He buries the chance. And it's 2-2, deep in stoppage time. Andre Onana, I mean, I know Ruben Amorim defended him in the aftermath of the game. I mean, that's what managers have often to do. At least publicly, they will defend you and then grill you when you get to the dressing room. And they were saying that when one of us makes a mistake, the entire team has made a mistake, and that kind of thing. Now, you could perhaps maybe give him a benefit of doubt, in my opinion, that his line of vision for that particular goal wasn't so clear, because that shot comes really fast. But the way he parries, and where I blame him is parrying it in the middle of the box, because usually goalkeepers are advised or trained to parry that ball sideways, outside, and that kind of thing, but not directly in that line of sight where you have all the players usually concentrated. So you parry to the left, to the right, and perhaps gives yourself a bit of a moment to recompose, because when it goes to the side, usually players will try to cross it back into the box or try to do a cutback and that kind of thing. But what happened is that he parried the ball directly in the middle and in the direction of Cheki, who converts, and it's suddenly 2-2, and that's how the game finished. So clearly, he undid Andre Onana individually, undid every little good thing that United had done in that game. So I'm sure he takes the blame. I'm sure he will have a lot to say or to apologize to United fans who are very furious with him. Of course, in the aftermath of that game, the alarm bells, I hope my microphone is still on. Yes, the alarm bells of wanting his departure have only been amplified, because that conversation has been there. When David De Gea was still a free agent last summer, there was speculation leading him back. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't feature for Manchester United this weekend, and he's not given that game because because of that performance alone, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't really be surprised if he's not given the nod to go and play in the next fixture against Newcastle United, because that game does come on Sunday, the 13th of April. They will be up against Newcastle United. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's not given the opportunity to play in preparation for the return leg against Lyon, because I don't know. The speculation is there that he will leave the club in the summer. The question is, will they find a suitable club that can offer them the money that they would want to recoup out of his signature? We all know he cost them that much. So about £43 million. So let me know what you guys thought of Andre Onana's performance. Personally, I was disappointed in the larger context of things. Just as much as any other Manchester United fan out there, and perhaps those who wish well United and English football in general. But allow us to move forward away from Onana's shenanigans and continue to the UEFA Europa League, where in the early kickoff we had Chelsea visiting Legia Warsaw. What an electric atmosphere did Legia Warsaw create in their home stadium. Basically what Dortmund create at the Signal Iduna Park, basically what Real Madrid replicate at the Bernabeu, and that kind of environment. Like I said, European nights are always special to these clubs, no matter how small the competition is, no matter how small the UEFA Conference League is. But George did score to give Chelsea the lead. The game was goalless at halftime, while Noni Madueke scored a brace as Chelsea beat Legia Warsaw by 3-0. Christopher Nkunku missed the penalty in that particular game as Chelsea were victors. Pretty much the result we expected, and I do expect Chelsea to do a number of Legia Warsaw for the return leg at Stamford Bridge next week, and they advanced to the semi-finals. In the other game, Rapid Vienna were 1-0 winners against Jagadin. Yes. So, like I said, for me, in my personal opinion, I think the strongest teams left in this competition is Chelsea, Rapid Vienna or Rapid Vienna, and then Fiorentina. Those are the teams that are really very highly. And yes, and Real Betis, because Real Betis were 2-0 winners against Jagiellonia. Yes. Forgive my pronunciation of some of these names. I'm not so familiar with them. There were 2-0 winners. Yes, that is Real Betis. Real Betis are under the charges of Manuel Pellegrini, the former Manchester City manager and formerly at West Ham as well. Of course, they're 2-0. They have the likes of Isiko Alcaran in that side. You have, of course, Manchester United's Anthony on loan, who they desperately will try to keep after the end of the season, whether on another season-long loan or with an obligation to buy or something. But I'm sure they will try to work out a deal. So the other game did see NK Celje lose to Fiorentina by 2-2. David De Gea being very crucial in that particular victory for Fiorentina ahead of the reverse fixtures. For me, I do think Real Betis will advance. Overall, Fiorentina, I do expect them to advance just as much as Rapid Vienna and Chelsea to advance to the semi-finals. And that's where it will get tricky or even more difficult for whoever wants to win it. As far as the Europa League is concerned, I do expect Manchester United to advance to the semi-finals. I do expect Athletic Bilbao to edge Rangers at home. And then I do expect Frankfurt and Tottenham is a bit of a difficult one to call, just as much as Lazio versus Bodo Glimt. But I'll go with Bodo Glimt to advance to the semi-finals. And then between Tottenham and Eintracht Frankfurt. Eintracht Frankfurt. They won this competition, was it in 2022, under the charges of Oliver Glasner, who is the manager at Crystal Palace. So I wouldn't be surprised if they advanced over Tottenham Hotspurs, who have largely been shitty this season, but mainly because of injuries and perhaps the stubbornness of the manager in Ange Postecoglou in being stubborn, refusing to change his own, tactics and that kind of thing, because sometimes you feel that he can tweak his tactics, perhaps to make his team more defensively solid and concede less goals, but he doesn't do that. But of course, we all know the Premier League will return over the weekend, just as much as the Spanish La Liga. Not to mention that all your teams will be in action between Saturday and Sunday, with Man City coming in the early kickoff against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace have been very, very impressive away from home this season. So we'll look at that. Arsenal will be up against Brentford. Aston Villa will be away to Southampton, who are already relegated. I expect Aston Villa to go and win that game and prepare themselves for PSG. The reason as to why that game is important is because it's one of the winnable games that they have in their pursuit of finishing in the top 5 of the Premier League to directly qualify for next season's UEFA Champions League. And then Nottingham Forest up against Everton, two teams that are defensively solid, do not concede so many goals, and Leicester against Brighton, expecting Brighton to beat up against Leicester, that kind of thing. So much. Then Barcelona will be up against Leganese. All that action will be coming your way over this weekend, but we'll get time perhaps tomorrow and review some of that. Otherwise, allow me to end it here. Like I said, we will try and keep it as short and simple as possible. Do let me know what your thoughts were on those performances that we discussed briefly. And step by step, have a wonderful rest of the day. See you next time. Bye-bye.